Attorneys call it snitch testimony, when inmates are used to serve as witnesses in a trial. So as you just saw in the surveillance video, the front door was locked. So around the corner here is how one of the kids was able to get into the store, by scaling this fence and climbing over it. Only 4 homes are receiving mail in their actual mailbox. For everyone else, their mailboxes have been empty since June 1st. He says in this statement that no injury was reported or observed during practice. The statement goes on to say the coach was notified only after practice had ended. Goon tells me last year, 57 school bus drivers had their yellow cards revoked in Indiana. So far this year, there have already been 30 revocations. 7 people are getting free portable air conditioning units installed here in Countryside Village. Truly life-changing for them. You did receive the letter from the state back in February?
Yeah.
Okay, but since then you haven't gotten any communication?
I think they're still looking into it.
Okay.
New tonight from the 16 News Now I-Team. An update to a story we first brought you earlier this year regarding a now former bus driver fired after being accused of driving a bus under the influence of alcohol.
After 2 months of waiting to hear back from the Indiana Department of Education, the 16 News Now I-Team learned some new information about the consequences that followed this incident. Our Caroline Klapp has been staying on top of the story for us for months. She joins us live now in studio. Caroline.
Hi, Josh and Lauren. As we reported back in February, the Elkhart Community Schools Board voted to fire Lisa Wigg. We also told you Indiana State Police was investigating the incident. The case is now in the hands of Elkhart County Prosecutor Vicki Becker. But after speaking with a veteran bus driver and Indiana School Bus Committee member, I'm told it is very unlikely Lisa Wigg will ever be able to drive a school bus again in the state of Indiana. Hi, are you Lisa?
Yep.
I'm Caroline with WNDU. I was wondering if I could ask you a couple questions about the incident at Elkhart Community Schools. That's Lisa Wigg, the woman the Indiana Department of Education says got behind the wheel of a bus with students on board while under the influence of alcohol. The incident in question happened on January 22nd of this year. We did not have confirmation students were on the bus that day until very recently. One of the most terrible things a bus driver can do, in your opinion?
Is driving drunk or driving with drugs in their system. I don't understand why they do that.
The 16 News Now I-Team submitted a public records request back in February to the state. Over 60 days later, the Indiana Department of Education sent a copy of a letter to me addressed to Wigg from February 5th, 2026. The letter from the state says Wigg's bus driver certification, also known as a yellow card, has been revoked. It goes on to say not only was Wigg under the influence of alcohol, but says she tested over 2 times the legal limit for a commercial motor vehicle and above the minimum limit to drive a car. The state also sent me a copy of an email from Indiana State Police saying Wigg was removed from her route that day at 8:09 in the morning and tested for alcohol about an hour later.
I just can't believe that any school bus driver who is responsible for all these children would even think about drinking or taking drugs or anything to put everybody at risk, even themselves.
Julia Goon has been driving a school bus for 16 years. She's also a member of the Indiana State School Bus Committee. It's a state advisory panel that advocates for safer school bus transportation.
Since I started, I have seen yellow card revocations go up every year, and it's like, wow. I mean, every time we have a meeting, we may have 12 or 15 revocations.
Goon tells me last year, 57 school bus drivers had their yellow cards revoked in Indiana. So far this year, there have already been 30 revocations. Goon says many of those revoked were for drug or alcohol use, but not all.
I mean, if that's your way of life, are you just being a school bus driver for the paycheck? Or are you doing this job because you care about those kids?
Does it get you emotional?
It does. The last day of school, which for me is this Friday, I'm going to be crying, telling them goodbye, like I'm not going to see you for 2.5 months. So yeah, I get a little.
So because you care so much.
Because I care about them.
In Lisa Wigg's incident back in January, there was not a wreck and no students were hurt.
You know, even though nobody got hurt, nothing happened, it could have happened.
I went to Wig's house on Thursday to see if she wanted to say anything about this situation. I received a few letters from the state that mentioned you were over 2 times the commercial limit for a bus driver, and that you had children on board the bus that day. I just wanted to see if you had any comment to the situation. No?
I haven't even got anything, so not right now until it goes further.
Okay, but you did receive the letter from the state back in February?
Yeah.
Okay, but since then you haven't gotten any communication?
I think they're still looking into it.
Okay, all right, thank you so much.
You're welcome, thank you.
But remember, this was not Wig's first time being fired for being accused of drinking. As we reported, Concord Community Schools fired Wig from her bus monitor position for coming to work smelling of alcohol. But we don't know if that incident was ever reported to the state. Remember, they don't have to. Just a few months later, Elkhart Community Schools hired Wig as a bus driver. Do you hope the Indiana legislature passes a law to require that kind of reporting?
I certainly do. I certainly do. It needs to be reported.
To be very clear, no charges have been filed against Wig. It will be up to prosecutor Vicki Becker to decide whether to charge her with a crime. I also reached out to Elkhart Community Schools to request a sit-down interview to talk about any changes the district has made following that incident, and they declined. Lauren?
Caroline Klapp.
Yeah, what a story. What an update to this story as well. And a lot more to come, it sounds like, too. So keep us posted. We appreciate it. Thank you. More than 30 years ago, a little boy was repeatedly molested here in South Bend, and now his abuser has been sent to prison. 16
News Now had a camera in the courtroom for the sentencing hearing. That's something that hasn't happened here at WNDU in St. Joseph County in years. Our Caroline Klapp brings us part 1 of her exclusive 16 News Now I-Team exclusive, A Victim No More. Caroline, tell us about it.
Josh and Lauren, Judge Sanford approved my request to have a camera at the sentencing hearing for Alan Tomaszewski last week. That's when Brandon Rogers had a chance to look his abuser in the eye when he addressed the court. Rogers' story may be upsetting as it's about child sexual abuse, but he hopes it brings comfort to other survivors out there.
You do not even classify as a human. You are insignificant, a rapist, a child molester. You are nothing.
Powerful words delivered straight to the face of his abuser.
On that same floor, in that same double-wide trailer.
43-year-old Brandon Rogers never thought he would see this day in court.
Out of respect for the court, I will watch my mouth, but I refuse to bite my tongue.
A day 32 years in the making. Rogers grew up in Florida, but came to South Bend during the summers as a child after his mother divorced Alan Tomaszewski.
We'd spend the summer, and then at the end of every summer, he would take us on this big, huge, extravagant vacation, going to Cedar Point, Dollywood, the Grand Canyon, and drop us, my brother and I, back off at home like, here you go, and, you know, and that's how it happened.
What happened is what Rogers remembers as years of repeated sexual molestation. As a child, the first time this started, you didn't really know what was going on, did you?
I didn't understand. It's, you know, I was a child, but, and I was confused, but after a couple years, I didn't need to be told. I just knew what was going on was wrong. But I was so scared to come forward because God forbid, you know, if no one believed my story and to be sent back up here, you know, I was scared to death.
Rogers also spent those summers in South Bend with his half-brother. But when Rogers was around the age of 12, his mother told him the man he thought was his father was really his former stepdad.
I actually came up here one more summer after I found out, because I felt like I had to come up here and let it happen to me to protect my brother. And the last summer I was here, I came to the conclusion that my brother's old enough, and I know there was no chance that it would happen to him. And then I sort of thought, well, he was probably just doing this because I wasn't actually his son.
So it did not happen to your brother?
No, absolutely not. thank God.
Rogers says from there, he tried to move on with his life, but the trauma of the abuse never left him.
Whether it's been a second, an hour, or the whole day, I've thought about this every single day of my life.
Rogers says the abuse started in the late 80s. 32 years later, he decided to speak out.
And the more I started to talk about it, I started to feel better. And then, as I sat there and got more comfortable talking about it, I was like, you know, this feels great that I no longer have to keep this secret. And then I started to think, well, he's alive up here. If I don't have to keep this secret, what gives him the right to keep this secret?
And in part 2, you'll find out how prosecutors were able to charge Tomaszewski all these years later. That's straight ahead at 5.
You talk about the fact that you were able to bring a camera into that courtroom, something that does not happen often.
That was a first for me as a reporter.
Talk about that process.
Well, I submitted that request over a month ago to Judge Sanford, and the morning of, I got a response back, and he said, you can come on in with the camera. So.
To hear those words.
I'm so glad you did, because it was so powerful to hear him address his abuser for the first time like that.
And he wanted you at home to be able to hear that story. So I'm glad Judge Sanford approved that request as well.
You don't need me to tell you that it's been a long, cold winter. For 9 weeks now, people living at Cedar Glen apartments say they haven't had consistent hot water. We've reported on this issue throughout the winter. Our 16 News Now I-team's been digging deeper to find out when the water will run hot again. And when I say our team, I say Caroline Klapp's the one that's been doing the digging. Caroline, your request for information from Cedar Glen management really went unanswered for about 2 months, right?
Yeah, George, that's exactly right. 9 weeks is a long time to go without a hot shower. I talked with multiple people who live at Cedar Glen apartments, and they say this is not the first winter they have not had hot water. When the outside world is filled with Arctic air, a hot shower is the only way most people would want to bathe. But the water at Cedar Glen is running cold. That's according to multiple residents we have talked to.
They have to boil water to cook, clean, bathe, everything.
Stacy Kamansky has become a persistent advocate for herself and her neighbors. This is the third time we have sat down with her about her complaint of the lack of hot water at Cedar Glen. We first interviewed her on December 12th. She says she hasn't had consistent hot water since November. How does that make you feel?
I'm beyond upset. I shouldn't have to go over to one of my kids' house to be able to take a hot shower.
It's gross not washing my hair, period. Would you tell us how long it's been since you washed your hair?
Probably 6 weeks. It's gross.
And Kamansky is not alone. Her neighbor, Willie Waters, says he won't stand under the cold water at all.
By me being a bachelor down there by myself, no, I ain't gonna do it.
Yeah.
No.
So you just do a little washcloth?
Yeah, I have to do like the birds, you know, let the water flow where it go. You know, I mean, I'm not trying to be funny or nothing, but the thing of it is, just being realistic, they don't do the job.
Taking a hot shower is not a luxury, it's the law. Indiana Code Title 32, Article 31, Chapter 8, Section 5 states, landlords must provide plumbing systems sufficient to accommodate a reasonable supply of hot and cold running water at all times. So as the weeks stretch on, we ask the question, what is being done? The first time we reached out to the leasing office by phone, we were told they could not give a comment and directed us to the corporate office. That phone number doesn't get you to a person. The automated recording directs you to fill out a form online and says someone will get back to you within 2 business days. I first filled that out on December 11th and again in late January. On January 27th, I went to the leasing office at Cedar Glen in person. I'm Caroline with WNDU. Is there a manager or someone I could speak to? So if you could find a phone number for like an actual person.
This is the only one I direct everyone to. You did submit something online.
Over a month ago. You don't have a contact within? I can leave you my phone number. While we ask Cedar Glen what is being done to address these concerns, so are the residents. What's their response when you say, hey, I still don't have hot water?
We're waiting on parts, or we're waiting on this, we're waiting on that, or we're gonna call Tyler's out.
Kamiansky says this isn't the first winter she's been without hot water.
This is the third winter. Every winter, it's either we have heat or we don't have hot water. We don't have both at the same time. I have very spotty heat, but the hot water, no. This whole entire building, and some people in 411 don't have no heat and hot water also.
Waters tells us he doesn't think the company which manages Cedar Glen cares.
The only thing they value is that money. You've been sitting on it. Now it's time to get off it and do your job.
Now, you still had not heard from them.
Yeah, at that point, I had not heard back. Barrett Realty Investments is the company that manages Cedar Glen Apartments. So since I hadn't heard back, I made the drive to Carmel to go to their corporate office and try to get some answers. And I was successful. I got answers for those residents. I have already reached out to them to let them know what I learned. But coming up tonight in part 2 of Running Cold once again, you can see how that visit to the corporate office went in Carmel tonight. George?
We look forward to that.